women'sministry.net friends. Wendy Blight here, and I am with Proverbs 31 Ministries and also serve on our First 5 app writing team. And I was so honored to be asked to come and talk to you today about a question I think a lot of people ask, and that is, how do I know that I'm called? How do I know when God calls me? And there's a 5-step process that I felt God took me through when I asked this question. And so I want to start with a real short story to tell you how I started my process. And then we're going to go through 5 steps using the acronym HEART. And I call it just checking your heart when you're wondering if you've been called. HEART. So I'm standing in my kitchen here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And when I first moved here in 1998, I moved here with nothing other than wanting to quit the practice of law and stay at home with my kids. So I was looking for a 3-bedroom house in a family-friendly neighborhood close to a good school. And the Lord brought that to me. I'm standing in it right now. But He also put me just up the street from the women's ministry leader at a church I ended up attending. And we met in a praying moms group. And after a couple years, the moms in the group said, "Hey, we want a Bible study." And Lisa looked at me and she said, "Do you want to start a Bible study?" And I said, "Oh, I've never done anything like that." And she said, "Well, I'll come alongside you." And we did that. And after about a year, I also ended up being a small group leader in a Bible study on the other side of town. So I had a little Bible study here. I was in a much bigger Bible study there, but just as a small group leader. Well, one day, the women in this larger study and the leadership invited me for lunch. And they all came and they said, "Wendy, we've prayed about it and we would like for you to join our teaching team." Well, needless to say, I was terrified. I had never thought of myself as any kind of teacher, but let alone a teacher of the Bible. And I didn't mind being a Bible study girl, and I didn't even mind leading Bible study girls. But I promised I would pray about it because these were godly women, and they said God had given them my name. And as I prayed, this is where I felt like God took me through a great process that helped me hear, yes, this is where He was calling me. And so the first step is we just have to humble our hearts. And what that really means is setting aside our own agendas and our predetermined plans and just surrender our hearts to God and be willing to hear if this is where He's calling us, even if we don't think we're qualified, even if we don't think that's what we're hearing. If someone has put it across our path, just humble our hearts and let us seek God's will in this. And that just means being willing to be open and set everything else aside. And the second thing is the E in heart, and that's examine your life circumstances, your past experiences. Because for each of us, we're going to have good places and bad places and tragic places in our lives. But I can guarantee you that each one of those places in our lives is significant if we've allowed the Lord to come in and work through them. And for me, as a young mom, I felt so unqualified to stand up in front of this Bible study of moms who were maybe 5 to 10 years younger than I was, because I was still making so many mistakes. But what the Lord was making me reflect back on is how many times when I made those mistakes, He took me to His Word and He equipped me to come out the other side and become a better mom and a better wife. And that I could share those valuable lessons with the ladies that were in the study. And even my broken places, the hard places in my life that I thought disqualified me, the Lord was really showing me, look how far I've brought you from that place that you thought you could never recover. And I have healed you and I have restored you. You have a story to tell and I want you to tell it. God allows those things in our lives so that others can see Him manifest in us. So we humble ourselves. We examine our life circumstances. And the next thing is we need to apply the gifts and talents that He's given us. And for me, I was beginning to slowly but surely see I did enjoy leading a small group and facilitating, and I liked teaching my little Bible study that I had. I had even dabbled in writing some curriculum. So I thought that teaching might be my giftedness, and I asked myself these 3 questions and realized these are great questions to ask. What comes naturally to you? Well, that was coming naturally to me. What brought me great joy? Standing in front of women and walking alongside them with the Bible open brought me great joy. And thirdly, what is the response to people? Like whatever it is that you naturally do well and brings you joy, how do people respond to you? And if they respond positively, like you are impacting their life, you are making them a better mom, you are helping the church better because of how you administrate in the office, everything runs more smoothly, whatever it is, whatever other people are responding well to you in, those are great signs that that's your giftedness. And so if the call is about that, then that's a sign that you need to work and apply those for the kingdom. God gave us those gifts to serve the kingdom. After you humble yourself and you examine your life circumstances and you apply those gifts and talents, you decide you want to do that and you've discovered them, then the next step is to read, study, and pray for a short amount of time, asking God for confirmation. And that is just going to his word and being still and just saying, Lord, show me, confirm this for me. And I'll tell you 2 verses he brought to my mind. From 1 Peter 5:2, it says, be shepherds of God's flock under your care. I almost heard my name say Wendy. Serving as an overseer, not because you must, but because you are willing, as God wants you to be. And the other one was even more powerful to me. Now he who supplied seed to the sower and bread for food will also supply and increase your store of seed and enlarge your harvest of righteousness. My fear of not being equipped enough, not being qualified enough, God was saying, don't worry about all that. I've already put you over these girls, and now I'm just putting you over a bigger group. There'll be 100 of them, but don't be intimidated, and I'm going to supply all you need. That's what God will do. He will affirm and confirm for you. And finally, the T in heart is to trust God and his timing. If you feel him calling you out, and maybe there's a little bit of wait and you have to wait, just wait on him. If you feel a yes, but it's not quite time, be patient, because his timing is perfect. And sometimes you wonder if you're caught between 2 places and you can't decide which one. Look for 2 things. And the first one is, which one of those is going to take maybe a little more courage and a little more effort? It's still in your giftedness. Go with the one that's going to require that, because that's when you're going to need God and he will be your strength. It's much more effective when we're operating in God's strength rather than our own. And secondly, go with the one that gives you a peace in the end when you make your decision. If you're very anxious and you just can't figure out if that's what you want to do or not, and you're in turmoil, that pretty much is a sign that you are not. If you don't feel called out with a peace, stay where you are and wait. So as we close today, the very heart of this message, what I really want us to hear is that we need to just tender our hearts and be sensitive to the whispering and the nudges and the invitations that come. And once you receive them, look for evidence of God at work in the midst of all of that. Everything that's coming together, because he's going to orchestrate the circumstances. He's going to issue you an invitation. And your job is to pray and to seek and to humble yourself and to listen. And God will swing that door wide open and give you a peace like you've never had, and a joy and an anticipation. And so the 5 steps again are: humble your heart, examine your life circumstances, apply your gifts and talents, read, study, and pray, asking for confirmation, and trust God in the midst of it all and his timing. And I might close today by asking you what step you might need to take that we've talked about. I've written a few down here. Do you need to surrender your agenda to God's? Do you need to discover your gifts and talents to clarify what they are for you? Do you need to change your prayers? Do you need to accept God's timing? Or do you just need to take one step of obedience? Thank you so much for joining me today in my kitchen, and God bless you, and I pray for you as you ask God, how do I discover my calling?